Porsche 911 prices were trending up during the last year, and this trend is coming now to an end, but it doesn't apply to all models. Some models are turning into collectibles and saw prices increase even further, while others saw prices increase due to supply shortages. Moreover, there are market segments where prices decrease. In short, there's never a boring moment in the 911 market as prices are moving continuously. In this video I will show you what models saw their prices go up, which ones saw price decreases and which ones remain stable. Moreover, at the end of the video I will answer your questions about the 911 Carrera market. But as always, we will start with a market overview. Over here we have the US 911 market with the model year on the horizontal axis and the price on the vertical axis. In total there are 1,288 clean title cars for sale and they have a median price of $100,000. However, this number doesn't tell us so much as there are large price differences between the generations. You can pick up a 996 for $21,000, but prices go up to $250,000 for a 992 GTS. When we look at these prices we can then also see familiar patterns. The newer the generation, the higher the price. And this also translates to the prices within a generation. A .2 version is more expensive than a .1, but the price difference depends a lot on the generation you are looking at. A 996.2 is for example $7,000 or around 23% more expensive than a 996.1, while a 991.2 is around $30,000 or around 35% more expensive than a 991.1. And naturally, as the cars get older, these differences become smaller. Now besides providing a nice market overview that data nerds like me can appreciate, the graph also shows the immense variety of choices for each budget. And that's perhaps what makes the 911 market so amazing. At $50,000 you can go for an immaculate 996, a normal 997 or a high mileage 997.1. Likewise, at a $100,000 budget you can go for the best 997.2 on the market, a decent 991.1 or a 991.2 with a slightly higher mileage. The choice is yours. So we're up to date now on today's market, and that means that it's time to have a look at the price development over time. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, the 911 market as we've known it during the last 2 years might be gone. We saw crazy price increases. Prices for the unloved 996 Carrera for example went up by more than 50%. In other words, if you bought any 911 during the last 2 years and only drove it for a bit, chances are that you are looking at a decent profit when you sell it. But this is no longer self-evident, with exception of a few niche market segments. We'll first have a look at the high-level developments and then pick out a few of these niche market segments that didn't follow the market trend. Over here we have the price trends for all generations. The 996.1, .2, 997.1, .2, 991.1, .2 and 992.1. Now when we look at the most recent price development over the last 3 months, we can see that it's flat for the majority of the segments. The only exception to this is the 997.1 segment, where prices increased with 7.5% and the 992 market segment, where prices increased with 5.4%. And both of these increases are statistically confirmed, which means that it's unlikely that they are the result of chance. Now even when we look at a slightly longer time period, we can see that many segments are cooling down. Between November of last year and now, 996.1 and .2s increased with 2.2 and 2.7%, while this is 1.8 and 2.8% for the 991.1 and .2. The 997 and 992 markets increased slightly more, but these rates fall short of the 2-digit increases that we saw before. So I think it's fair to conclude that the market stabilized somewhat and that it's risky to bet on another round of severe price increases. Stable is often confused with boring, but that's definitely not the case over here. Prices might be stable, but the market characteristics aren't. Some market segments saw for example large supply changes and changes in the quality of the cars that are offered for sale. And some of these developments are key price drivers for the price increases in the niche market segments that we will discuss in a moment. But let's first have a look at the market characteristics. Over here we have the development of the supply, median mileage and median model year. And if we start at the left with the supply graph, we can see 3 interesting things. For all generations, supply is below pre-pandemic levels. Supply for the older cars tends to be low but stable, and supply for most of the newer generations decreased massively. Now starting with the first observation, we can see that the last points are all lower than the first points. And this is not a complete surprise as the popularity of these cars increased tremendously during the pandemic. Moreover, the supply drop fits with the severe price increase in the market. Now second, When we look at the supply development for this group over here, we can see that supply has been stable since November of last year. And this goes for both the 996 generation and the 997.2s. So the older cars with the exception of the 997.1. And this stable supply development matches with the stable price development, but does stick out a bit from the rest of the bunch. In the 997.1, 991.1 and .2 and the 992 market, we can see large supply drops during the last 3 months. Is this a summer effect what's going on here or what? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Now if we move on to the mileage, we can see another interesting development. It appears to be so that the 997 and 996 markets are becoming collectible car markets. If you look at the top 4 lines, you can see that the median mileage for the cars that are offered for sale decreased. In other words, it's likely that the average quality in the market increased. And this is something that you typically see when cars are moving towards a collectible car status. Cars are driven less and less, and the prime examples go for very high prices. In traditional markets you see the opposite. Cars get driven and the median mileage of the cars offered for sale increases. This is then also exactly what you can see in the 991 and the 992 market and in the majority of the other car markets. Now so far we observed a few things in the market. Price trends are flattening, supply is down for the newer cars and stable for the older cars, and the quality of the older cars that are put up for sale increased. We can of course analyze the market for hours and look at different market splits, such as the split between the roof type, the transmission type, the low versus the high mileage cars, you name it. However, I'm not planning to make this an hour-long video, so I will show you the developments that caught my eye. After that I will then answer your questions. Yet, before we do all of that, if you enjoyed this video and would like to support the channel, please click on the like button down below. Thank you. Also, I sometimes received messages from you asking if I have a Patreon account. I don't, but YouTube enabled this super thanks functionality for my channel, which means that you can make a financial contribution to the channel if you wish to do so. And with that, let's dive into the details. In the 996 market, it are the manual 4S's that stick out. Have a look at the following price trend. Most 996 prices flattened after September, but not the ones for the manual 4S's. We can see that prices increased by 13.5% or $6,700 during the last 3 months. And this development of course fits with the whole collectible car narrative. A manual 4S is arguably the most sought after 996 Carrera, and these type of cars tend to increase the most in these collectible car markets. Moreover, I also studied this price trend in depth, and this revealed that it are the low mileage cars, so the ones with less than 30,000 miles, that increase the most. You can also see this from the confidence interval. The market bottom remained more or less flat, while the market top increased a lot since October 21. Now when we look at the 991 market, we can see that it are the GTS and the T models that are taking a slightly different course. Over here we can see from top to bottom the price trends for the .2 GTS, S, T and base models. And this shows that in the last 3 months, the GTS's and the T's increased with 4.9 and 4.5%. Moreover, these increases are statistically confirmed, so the chance that these developments are based on noise in the data is relatively small. However, I need to highlight that especially the T market is rather small, so some caution needs to be taken when we interpret this increase. Nevertheless, both price developments are clearly different from the ones in the base and the S market. Prices are flat over there. Why do you think that the GTS has increased so much more than the rest of the market? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Now finally, we need to talk for a moment about the 992 market. We can see that prices continue to trend up, and this goes especially for the S model. Prices increased by 4.8% in that segment versus 2% in the base segment. And this is likely the result of a limited supply combined with a high demand. A quick look at the Randlist forum reveals that it's extremely difficult to get an allocation, and that it's unlikely that you can get one at MSRP. The 911 is popular as ever. Supply is constrained due to the shortages, and I'm sure that the sinking of the Felicity cargo ship also didn't help the situation. A quick look at the supply development indeed reveals that it's low. We can see that the number of used cars on the market decreased since the beginning of last year, and this is remarkable given that we are looking at a new car. I mean, even in the Corvette C8 market, a market that's also overheated, we can see an increase in used supply levels. So if you want to get your hands on one, good luck to you. Unless supply improves, I don't think it's likely that this trend will change significantly in the short-term future. And that's a slight deviation from my previous assessment. So we look now at some of the larger market trends and also at some specific developments. However, since there is so much that we could potentially cover, I asked you in my previous video and on Instagram to submit questions that you would like to see answered in this video. Unfortunately, I can't answer all of them, so I will only cover the ones which I think we didn't discuss yet in this video. And we will go rather quickly. Tom Q asked for a comparison between the 997 4S, S and the base model, and also Jeffrey is interested in the 4S and the base model. If we compare those price trends, we can see that the premium for the 997 4S increased during the last 6 months. Prices are up by 10% since November, while the price trend for the S model is flat. Prices for the two-wheel drive base model on the other hand increased, but not by the 12% what you see over here. A part of this increase is caused by a change in the market composition. The actual increase rate lay somewhere at 5%. The price trend of the four-wheel drive base model is a bit unreliable due to the small market size. However, the bandwidth of the price fluctuation seems to be fairly stable. And with that we move to the next question. Femur Fast asked when for an enthusiast it will be a good time to buy a 996 C4S. Now to be honest, if you're an enthusiast, every time might be a good time. Having said that though, we saw that 996 C4S prices increased a lot and that it starts to become a collectible car. And this means that low mileage cars tend to lose their value quickly when you add mileage to them, which I assume you will, because you're an enthusiast. So if I were you, I would look at a higher mileage example that has been well maintained instead of the lowest mileage example on the market. And with that we move on to the question from Warren. He asked for an overview of the 997.2 and 991 GTS market. The price trends are quite similar and both markets saw price increases during the last 3 months. For the 991 this is 4.2% and for the 997 this is 8%. However, the 997 market is very small, so we need to be careful with interpreting this price trend. The increase in the 997 market is then also not statistically confirmed. Also, we saw earlier in the video that the 991.2 GTSs really separated themselves from the rest of the market. It are then also the 991.2s that are responsible for the price increase over here. And with that we move on to the next question. Smart Intentions asked about the 997 Cabriolet market trend. And I frequently get questions about the difference between the coupe and the cabriolets. But to be honest, for the majority of the models it makes no difference. Over here you can see the price trends for the 997 base and S market split by roof type. And as you can see, the price trends are nearly identical. And with that, let's discuss the final question. Many of you asked me about the effect of color on the price of a car. And that's quite a difficult question to answer, while also having the data to back it up. I tried to answer that question for the Ferrari market, and you can click over here if you want to check out that video. Perhaps I should do something similar for the Porsche market. In the meantime though, there's an excellent article from Haggerty where they try to quantify the effect of color on the price of a car. And I will put the link to that article down below in the video description so you can check it out. We will now wrap up and conclude. We saw that most market segments are stabilizing and that the time of 2-digit price increases is over. Therefore, if you are looking to purchase a 911, it's not self-evident anymore that you can sell it with a profit. I think that those days are gone for now. The market itself also changed to some extent as supply levels are much lower than before the pandemic. Moreover, the 996 and 997 market started to look a lot like a collectible car market. Now we also looked a little bit deeper into the data, and this revealed that there are a few market segments that didn't follow the market trend, namely the manual 996 4Ss, the 991.2 GTSs and the complete 992 market. Finally then, I mixed up the format a little bit and asked you in advance to submit questions that you would like to see answered in this video. What did you think about this? Is this something that you would also like to see in future videos? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. And with that we arrived at the end of this video. As always, thank you for watching and I hope to see you next week for a new analysis.